Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me the songs of Mother Goddess and of Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. How ya doing? This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. I forgot the microphone. I hope y'all are having just a fantastic day that ends in Y. We're being broadcast live, of course, on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. And if you are listening in on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, the like, the subscribe, you know the thing. You know the drill and how to do the thing. Let's see. No matter how you are hearing me, make sure you stop in and say hi in one of the chat rooms. Or, if you cannot, you can always send me an email at wildpaisley@gmail.com. That is WILDEPAISLEY@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, please do so. You can do that by doing the cash tag to support my radio habit. That is $TheSpacesBetween. Or you can also just check out PaisleyWild.com. That's just me, PaisleyWild.com. All sorts of stuff up there. I got stuff for sale, I got links, I got some stuff. Yeah, just some stuff. And the phone lines are open tonight, so that number is 213-233-3998. Or if you're across the pond in the UK, it is 44203-393-2871. Hey, so hello. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. I am. Guess what? I got something in the mail. Doop. Oh, hey. There we go. Can you see me now? Yeah. It's my book. It's not a really big one. I mean, it's kind of skinny. It's just, Yamanda. It's just a book, A to Z, the Wild Pagan A to Z. I illustrated it, and it was self-published and all that. I was published under Monarch Mountain Studios. And I'm not 100, I don't know. This is my first experience with Amazon publishing. And I would have to say the jury is still out. I am not 100% yet. But we shall see. Hi, Linda. So, yeah. Let's see. We can do this. I can only talk and type sometimes. Sometimes I can't. Other new stuff. What's coming up? What is new? So, right now you can find the book in both print and in Kindle through Amazon. And I didn't have a chance to get it loaded into the website since I have a physical copy now. I can... hey, Pharmacy. Hi, Kai. I can now send you guys a copy if you wanted to order it through the store. So I know a couple people have expressed interest in ordering and having it shipped overseas. So if that is something that you want to do, send me the email, the wildpaisley@gmail.com, with the address you want it sent to. And I do have some access to some different shipping rates because I'm a business. And I guess that matters. I guess. And I'll see what the potential cost to ship is before you want to purchase. And I will let you know. And yeah. So there. I guess that's the plan. That's the thing. I see Pharmacy is in the chat room. Wow, Farm, it's been a while. Goodness. Springtime, did you crop planted? Is that what this is? Anyways, yes. Trying to think what else. Beltane this weekend. Yay, exciting. Beltane. A lot of folks are doing solo practices. I'm not going to talk about that tonight just because there's a lot of information out there already. If if you do want me to talk about it more tomorrow, let me know. And I will. Yeah. Love you too, Pharmacy. Thanks for checking in. Today, I wanted to talk about emotions just a bit because, well, emotions are kind of a big deal. And often, when we start doing magic type things, or, well, it's based 100% on emotion. It's a knee-jerk reaction to something. It's not planned or plotted. It's you cut me off, you jerk, and I'm going to flip you off. And then, hey, if you don't get out of my way, I'm going to rear-end you. You know, something like that. I'm kidding. Don't do that. That's bad for you. But that being said, you know, there are, you know, other emotions out there, and besides anger, so I figured we'd talk about just some emotional type stuff, because right now, if you've ever been in customer service, you know that there's a lot of emotion out there, some good, some bad, and so yeah, kind of how to channel that, you know, high emotions and what to do there, because yeah, there's a lot of emotion in magic, and often when people start transitioning onto the pagan path, it's because they're almost rebelling against their Christian upbringing, because that's a big deal. A lot of times, it's a very, very big deal. The desire to explore and see what else is out there often stems from a significant dissatisfaction with the way you grew up and your family and the way they treat you and what they do. And I get it. I really, truly do. And wasn't 100% sure what we were going to talk about tonight. But, you know, I do take a lot of inspiration from my own personal life. So, yeah, we're talking about emotions. Because emotions and understanding them and getting a handle on them are often really, 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 really important when it comes to self-care. Because if you are so emotional, or you know, shove all your emotions down and you ignore them for so long, often that self-care makes it doesn't make an appearance until you finally don't have a choice and you have to do it. Which, you know, that happens. Sometimes we're so busy and distracted we don't have a chance. It's like, you know, I have to do the things, or I'm not going to have the bills paid, or I'm not going to have, you know, a place to live or food to eat or clean clothes to wear, or the kids awake and off to school, or respecting, you know, 1 in 10 people, and all of those different things. So, you know, often that self-care gets pushed aside because, like, you know, I'll get to it when I have time. And because our emotions allow us to do that, very rarely are we targeting ourselves with our emotions. Yeah, that self-care gets hard. And I am currently dealing with this myself. My day job has to go away, so because I have to do some self-care. And it's very bizarre trying to juggle that and figuring out what it is that I am going to do the self-care, so that I, you know, well, I'm just straight up taking care of myself. Because if I don't take care of myself, who will? Not the moody cat, not the goofy dog, not the 6-year-old. It's just not the right thing to do. So yeah, self-care, big deal. And I'm sorry, there are 2 cats in my immediate vicinity, and apparently they do have to sing the song of their people. So if they get too loud, let me know, and I will start throwing things at them. I've got some rocks here and some cups. Oh, yes. Anyway, so when I started working or looking for some good emotional type things to talk about, I found a couple of really good articles off of Pathos. I love Pathos. So, regardless of your spiritual path, there's a lot of good information on pathos.com. They do articles and blogs and videos and just all sorts of fun and interesting infomercial type things that, if you're looking for insight into yourself or your spiritual path, is a really good spot to go. And not only do they have stuff for paganism, but they have they talk about Buddhism and Catholicism, evangelical, basic Christians, Hindu, Judaism, non-religion, Muslim, Latter-day Saints, progressive Christian, and some other alternatives that you don't just stand out in the big lists, I guess. So, woo, I'm pagan. I stand out in a big list. And I was just looking for general emotions and came across an article that I thought was pretty fantastic. And so we're going to... there's part of it that I kind of wanted to just read to you because this gal's sense of humor just made me giggle. But the article link will be in the show notes, and it's titled Priestessing Depression, Why Are Pagans So Afraid of Negative Emotions? And you know what? Pagans as a group are pretty afraid of negative emotions. That's why so many of them are love and light pagans or neo-pagans. Honestly, you have to accept the negative emotions. So it starts off, this turmeric lemonade is better at treating depression than Prozac. This anti-inflammatory, antioxidant-packed, cancer-fighting, antibacterial, and antiviral superfood, turmeric has now been found to lift depression more effectively than any other conventional drug. It talks about clinical trial and curcumin and fluoxetine adverse effects, et cetera, et cetera. And it says, the author goes, that's right, depressionists. I love that word. You can throw away your prescriptions and cancel your therapy appointments because cure is a refreshing glass of lemonade. So, is your BS detector going off? Yeah, it should be. Because if you had read the original article, it talks about how curcumin, which is turmeric, is as effective as fluoxetine, but of course, because it's more natural, it makes it more effective, which is just marketing speak for, hey, check this out. It's the same thing, but did you know you have to, drink a gallon of turmeric tea to get the same effect as a single pill? Just kind of whatever that is. And so, basically, if it sounds too good, it probably is. So, the author talks more than about how, as someone who has dealt with depression, both with herself and with others, she's like, well, there's a lot to be said about public depression or the public perception of depression and mental health disorders in general. And a lot of folks who are dealing with depression, regardless of their tradition and their spiritual path, have just a hard time finding a good treatment. I know people that have taken all of the name brand antidepressants over the years. Some feel better, some feel worse, some feel better for a little bit, then they apparently hit their max dosage, and they're instead of being depressed, they have anxiety, or they're just going to go out and kill people. And I don't mean that to poke fun. I mean that seriously. It's not something to dismiss, because a lot of the antidepressants have a chemical reaction within the human body, and as a result, it changes your chemical response to different stimuli. And sometimes that stimuli causes you to retreat, and sometimes that stimuli causes you to act out aggressively. And sometimes very, very aggressively. So if you know someone who is on antidepressants, or if you yourself are, pay attention to the side effects and make sure if there's anything that shows a red flag, you're talking to your primary care doctor. You don't just let that kind of thing go. It's not okay. And this is one of those situations where having some sort of journal is really, really good, because if you're writing these things down, you can often see the trends. Like, oh, hey, I was taking this medication, I was doing good, and suddenly, nope, it's not. It's bad. And, if you're working with a professional, that's good. let them explain things, and make sure you are communicating and telling the whole story to your therapist or your doctor, not just the PC part. So if you smoke a little weed, okay, you smoke a little weed. Just make sure your doctor knows, because some of the medications that are prescribed do have adverse reactions to THC and CBD. That's even if there's nothing infused into, the grass that you're smoking or eating or whatever the hell it is. So, anyways, PubMed, and that's PUBMED. It's PubMed, I believe, is a .org. It's a full access website to verify medical claims on, alternative health stuff that you're not entirely sure is really real. So if you see something online that's too good to be true, check it out. Don't assume that just because, 5 out of 4 specialists in some remote region of the world said something works doesn't mean it really, really works. So pay attention. Do your research. Don't just assume the internet is always right all the time. For most of you who are listening, you know this. And it's glaringly obvious. So, anyways. But, we do see a lot of stuff out there when it comes to depression. And when we start seeing things on Facebook that are supposed to uplift you and stuff, we start seeing hashtags like, hey, this is day 34 of my share the love trend, or pick the picture that makes me feel happy, or, we need to remember really right off the top, social media, anything you see on social media is the best possible solution or best possible day that any person has ever had. If you've ever watched an influencer photo shoot, oh my stars. There are YouTube videos about this now because they are flippin' hilarious. Random people doing strange things out in the middle of nowhere to just get the perfect shot. And it is very bizarre. And oftentimes those shots that look so casual and relaxed and, oh, look at all the pretty people. Yeah, it's so fake. It's more fake than a Barbie doll's dimensions. So, yeah. You can be exuberant and you can be positive and you can share that, but make sure it's coming from a genuine location, a genuine place within yourself. And you're not using that as a false way of showing the real you. If you're that worried about how your social media people are going to react to seeing crap in your life, maybe you shouldn't be posting that kind of stuff on social media at all. Maybe you shouldn't be on social media. Sadly, there are studies now that talk about how social media is really bad for your mental health. A friend of mine, with the whole COVID mess, started homeschooling, and she noticed her older daughter spent quite a bit of time in front of the mirror. She's a sprightly 16 years old and not sassy at all. But, yeah. Anyways, this kid spent a lot of time in front of a mirror. Anytime there's a reflective surface, she was stopping and checking herself out and trying, making the duck faces and all that stuff. So she got rid of pretty much every reflective surface in the house, except for the little tiny mirror that happened to be in her bathroom that she decided, no, if you want to make sure you don't have any lettuce in your teeth, that's probably the right one to use. The mental health of the entire family got better because they weren't being inflicted by or conflicted. I'm not sure which the word there is, but they weren't being that self acceptance of your appearance wasn't being shoved in their face all the time. And Justin says there's nothing uplifting on Facebook. Well, no, there's some things. I personally like the funny cat videos. Those are good. Although lately I've been watching TikTok videos There are some funny videos on there too. I don't share those mostly because that's my sense of humor won't let me, but yeah. So, anyways, when you're posting the extremes of your emotions, whether they're really, really bad, like woohoo, life is going great, I'm moving somewhere, or man, life is gross, I just broke up with my significant other, or parenthood sucks, or parenthood is amazing, or pick anything in the silly cat videos. Any of those things, are not going to really propel you upon your spiritual path. They're not going to add the meat and potatoes of information to your brain and to your spiritual practice. Okay, sure, watching funny cat videos makes you smile and chuckle, but it doesn't really help you to work on you. It's just, it's a time suck. You don't get a lot done. And I know we're all quite often firmly attached to our technology. Here I am doing a radio show online in front of camera, so I'll have a live studio audience. I have a pair of peanut galleries here. And that's all, who am I to poo-poo the technology? But you know what? We also have to remember to turn it off, set it down, walk away. And the article here talks about how she has two Facebook pages, one for her pagan groups and one for her non-pagan. And she says her non-pagan groups often feel more honest than the pagan one. Well, it's because often there's a lot of self-absorption and anger, it seems like, with a lot of the pagan groups for some reason. And I'm not sure why, because I just don't know why. I mean, we talk about how we accept everybody, and you do you, and we got to work through your shadow work, and we got to do your therapy and all that stuff, and it's good. But at the same time, when it comes to having negative emotions like anger, fear, sadness, resentment, jealousy, that kind of thing, instead of allowing ourselves as pagans to feel them, we try to spin them off with some sort of spiritual rhetoric, like, blessed be, or hey, I'm upset and my spirit guides are trying to teach me things, or I missed the karma marker there and I pulled out in front of the guy and got rear-ended, or whatever it is. And it's frustrating. And the author of this particular article says, and my jealousy is a lesson that the goddess is teaching me. That's one. Now that I've learned my lesson, I can't possibly feel jealous anymore. Right. Or here's another one, is my rage at the guy in traffic is the next level of my left-hand path. Therefore, flipping him off is a divine mandate. I am so lucky to be blessed with what seems for all the world like a shitty feeling, but is actually a lightning bolt of undiluted wisdom that has been crafted by the universe just for me. Yeah, there's...
Ow.
Don's in the house.
Only here for a minute.
Yeah.
But that's funny.
Yeah. You don't think that lightning bolts of undiluted wisdom, strike us from afar?
Huh?
You don't think those lightning bolts of undiluted wisdom can strike us from afar?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How often are they described as, feeling shitty?
No.
My point, though, is so often that, it's normal for non-pagans, if you will, to say, oh, I feel like crap, so I'm going to go to therapy. But when it comes to paganism, a lot of times people are saying, if I just did the shadow work, I wouldn't have this problem. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we forget as a group that the shadow work and therapy are bosom buddies.
The same thing.
Yeah, they're you kind of need to do both. It's not one or the other. You got to do both. Just really. So If so, the article goes on to say, when we're unable to admit that sometimes shitty things just happen and our brains respond like the human brains they are, then we enter into dangerous territory. If our anger is actually wisdom, we think, then maybe that means we're allowed to take it out on whomever we want. If someone challenges us, then they're standing in the way of our own spiritual evolution and must be cut down. Everything bad that happens is actually good, which means that I should only ever feel good, which means that this bad feeling is really a good feeling in disguise, which means that I just need to break it open to see what it is, because, well, blah. And why do I have a migraine? Basically, often when we think everything is spiritually related, yeah, we're putting ourselves into that negative death spiral of insanity and depression instead of accepting that, maybe it is a mental illness. Maybe I just had a shitty day. I mean, that happens. We all have a bad day. It doesn't matter how old you are. I have seen some 3-month-old kids have bad days. Oh, and hey, we're going to break already. We'll be right back. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. So, just like that, we had a flyby by Don, and he is off away doing other things. Um, he's working extra hours, and yeah, he looked a little tired, so he had his ice cream and left. So tonight we're talking about emotions. Specifically, right now we're talking about depression and paganism. And yeah, paganism has a big problem with depression, really. So often we're looking for other ways of treating ourselves that we forget that sometimes those other ways of treating ourselves are not necessarily the best ones. So with a lot of the ads that we see online, it's like, yeah, the turmeric lemonade that I talked about at the very beginning. Often we see that along with posts and ads about how, oh, you're poisoning yourselves with taking drugs or other chemicals, or only silly people or stupid people are taking drugs like that, or, big pharma wants your money, and, think yourself happy and the problem will go away. You know what? That's really not the way it works. You can't really think yourself happy. It's a little more complicated than just changing your thought patterns. So, when we see people having responses to situations like within paganism, there's an assumption of lots of nakedness and adult activities while naked, and often that draws a certain crowd of folk that do not readily accept no as a true answer. And so when their behavior gets them, they get in trouble with like group organizers or coven leaders, they get banned, or they kicked out, or whatever. There's some sort of discipline of some sort. And okay, that's good, but often along with that, the reason for the discipline is not blatant. It's kind of lessened. In other words, often the leadership doesn't really talk about why they were banned, because it's embarrassing to talk about having, oh, hey, we accepted this person into our group, and, well, they were, douches, and so that's why we kicked them out. No, instead we say, often leadership will say, well, they had to go get some treatment for this or whatever. Often we see it as almost an alienating or oppressive type groupthink, because instead of saying, hey, we had to kick them out because they had mental health issues, which isn't really the case, we should be saying, well, we kicked them out because they were trying to be criminally behaving around the people they're supposed to be supporting, and that's not okay. Or sometimes for self-care, we have to step back. We need to not do all the things. We have to learn how to say no, which is hard. So very hard. I have a hard time saying no, personally. But I do it. And occasionally, when I do step back and I'm doing my own thing, I've been accused of, hermiting. I've become a hermit, so I'm not being around people, antisocial, or the article here says alienating myself from everybody. And instead, sometimes I just don't need your vitriol. I don't need your anger, your behaviors, your whatever. Instead, I just need a break. But because of the way we're often perceived when we need that little emotional break, people seem to react as if that's not okay. You can't take some time off for personal care. Even though we tell you to, you still can't, which is complicated and doesn't make sense. It's one of those oxymorons. Yes, you can take self-care, but only as I tell you to do it. It's not the way it works. That's the way any of this works. And so often, within paganism, actually within quite a few different community or spiritual groups, if your mental health isn't 100%, at least on the surface, you're not okay. You can't be in part of our group. So within witchcraft or paganism, you're not okay to be a witch if you're not 100% okay. And so it seems like there's a lot of talk and a lot of discussion and a lot of books on how to heal yourself. But if you're caught reading one of those books, or going to one of those workshops, or attending one of those seminars, or writing one of those books that talks about how to, work through your shadow work and do some mental health restoration, then suddenly you're ostracized and you're not good enough, which isn't the way it should be. If you are strong enough to say, I need the help, I'm reading the book, I'm doing the therapy, and I'm doing the shadow work, and I'm journaling. Instead of saying, oh, that's not the way it works, we should be saying, good job. That's what we should celebrate. Not the, hey, it's been, 322 days since the sun didn't set. We're doing great. Instead of celebrating the fake, not necessarily fake milestones, we should celebrate even the little, the quiet sounding ones that are actually huge. It's kind of like when someone says oh wait, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Often, generally speaking, there is no elephant in the room. It's a figure of speech. Well, mental health is the elephant in the room. And so within my own practice as a priestess, I do talk to people about mental health and the things they're working through, and I have counseled people on, what are they doing for their shadow work. Often I can get them started on some of the mental health stuff, but as I'm not trained in that field, I don't always feel comfortable trying to provide guidance and such, and it's just because I'm not trained, and I don't want to lead someone astray. And so sometimes I do refer out to go see a therapist. But it's work. It is work to sit there and communicate with someone that's having a rough time of things, and listen, not listen to fix. Because sometimes it's hard to hear the negative things. Sometimes it's revenge, sometimes it's exhaustion, sometimes it's I'm a horrible parent, or I'm a terrible significant other, or this time in work I did this thing and I hope nobody ever catches me. And we're human, all of us, and we make mistakes, we do things. The author of this particular article calls them emotional farts and belches that every single one of us experiences. Yeah, we all do that. Because it's harder as a priestess to be present for all of those moments and hold them and honor them and truly try to understand them as much as a priestess I would help with encounters with divinity or with divination or any other spiritual thing that you've encountered. And often when someone has that really hugely earth-shattering mystical experience, it's easy to say, wow, that's so cool, and to have that positive interaction and that build the individual up. And it's harder to build someone up when, you know what, I've had a crap day. But, when I stepped into this role of being a priestess, that's part of who I am. That's part of what I do is to make sure I'm helping both, or not just for the good stuff, but also for the stuff that kind of sucks a lot. And so sometimes if you're like doing divination, sometimes you have to give bad news. It's not always sunshine and rainbows in divination. Sometimes It's a no. It's, um, you know, when I first started doing any kind of divinatory reading, I kind of wanted to sugarcoat it and say, you know, well, you're going to have this crap happen, but you'll be better in the end. Instead of helping people understand and work through the crap. Because sometimes we have to go through it. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily end up being as bad as we thought it was going to be. But, you know, if you're helping someone or doing a divinatory session with someone, you know what? You need to be honest. So, I mean, it's hard. Oof, it's hard. But we still need to be honest. And when it comes to our mental health, you might be upset that it's because someone was just a jerk. And sometimes you gotta let that energy run its course, which is sometimes easier said than done. I can think of about 6 people right off the top of my head that have driven me nuts in the last 20 years that I just don't have time for anymore. I just don't. Now, is that bitterness and anger on my part? Some of it. Some of it is just self-preservation. But, you know, when it comes to mental health, you know, sometimes, yeah, you got to just let it run its course. But sometimes, you know, you're having an issue because things aren't clicking right in the brain. Maybe there's a physical reason for it. Maybe you got bumped on the head. Traumatic brain injury is a big deal. And will I help someone through that? Yes, I will. But they also need to be in the care of a physician of some sort that is able to make sure that they're being treated correctly for that kind of a thing also. But, you know, we're human as pagans. It's part of who we are. That's part of what we do. Just because we burn incense or listen to singing bowls a lot or work with the elder gods, that doesn't mean that we get to opt out of all those human experiences, because those are part of us. That's part of who we are and in our growth, in our path. So, yeah, we don't get to opt out of those experiences, the bad ones. We have to be on board with the good ones. So, the author has a really good mindfulness exercise. And basically, STOP, S-T-O-P, is just helps you to remember. Stop, take a breath. Well, seriously, stop. S stands for stop. T, take a breath. O, observe. And P is for proceed. So basically, if you're getting upset about something, stop. Take that deep cleansing breath. Sometimes you need 2 or 3. I get it. Yeah, take that breath. And observe your mental space and your mental state without denying the validity of it. Just like, you know, that was really crappy. How do I feel about it? Am I okay with it? Am I not okay? Because if you observe it, it reduces that lingering impact. Kind of like if you get a splinter in your finger. If you stop and you pick the splinter out right away, it you might get a little infected, but not too bad. But if you leave the splinter in there for any length of time, it's going to fester and it's going to hurt. If you've ever worked with railroad ties or anything with any kind of creosote treatment, those splinters are the absolute worst. They hurt, they burn, and it doesn't take them very long to be absolutely disgusting. So, yeah, don't let those things fester, those things that are truly causing you mental anguish. Justin says that he doesn't go to any of those groups anymore because it doesn't matter what it is. There's always some chain of hierarchy of people that want to tell you how to live your life. Yes, you must drink the Kool-Aid and eat the lettuce. Not necessarily in that order. Unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of that. Unfortunately, yes. I joined an online coven. Not so much because I want to be in multiple covens, but more because this one, it's called a coven, but it's more a combination between a 20 group and a book club, which, as a pagan, it totally makes sense to me. So for those of you who've never experienced a 20 group, basically it's about 20 of your peers in not just society, but professionally, educationally, spiritually. Not always, but sometimes. And you get together and you support one another. You meet regularly, you discuss current events and issues that come up and all of that stuff, which is good. And then you're there to support one another. So this coven to me is kind of like that kind of a 20 group. It's there, we support one another and we hold one another accountable, because often it's really easy to just kind of skate through life and do your own thing and not read the right books or do the right practices. So I'm reading The Sorcerer's Secrets by Jason Miller. Actually, it's a really interesting book. I do recommend it. But this part of my homework is to read a really good book once in a while. Not a hardship. Really, it isn't. But, in doing this, it helps me to stay focused on my path. And it helps me to not spin and take some of those negative feelings about being a priestess or being a pagan that can fester sometimes, especially if you run into one of those jerks out there. It helps me to work through those negative energies because I have these people I can go to and talk to. And instead of trying to force it into being positive, we get to pull out the issue, examine it, dust it off, and oh, that's what the issue was. I acknowledge that and I can move on. And that's a big deal, to be able to acknowledge that emotion and accept it in its completeness. It's like, oh, that's what that meant. Okay then. But I can do this. I've got this. So instead of spitting out the verbal vomit that often comes when someone cuts you off, is it gonna be for your highest good to yell at the person that just cut you off or flip them off? Do you really mean it? Do you really want to damn them all to hell? Sometimes, yes. Really, yes. But generally, no. I'm just frustrated. So I'm not, if I don't really mean it, why would I say it? Why would I put those words out there? Maybe they pulled that in front of me because I wasn't paying attention. That happens. I've seen it. I'm not the only one who does this. You're sitting at a red light and the light turns green and you don't go because you're distracted for whatever reason. There's so many out there. And so someone in the traffic next to you wants to make a right-hand turn into your lane, but because you're not moving, they pull out in front of you. Whose fault is that? Well, technically, does it matter? Wholeheartedly, does it matter whose fault it is? Nobody's. So instead of trying to poke your finger at them and tell them, oh, hey, you're the bad guy for pulling out in front of me, stop and remember, if you're pointing your finger at someone, you got 3 more pointing right back at you. So you need to remember, who is it that is really kind of being the jerk in this situation? And do you really mean what you're going to say? Would you look yourself in the eye in your mirror and tell you to go fly the proverbial kite? And mean it? I mean, most of us know. Most of the time, we'd say no. So, if you hear or you encounter magic practitioners or pagans who do go to a therapist or do take medications for one reason or another, and it doesn't really matter. In this particular case, we're talking about an article that talks about depression, which is real, but I've seen it for pain. I've seen it for, I say pain pretty broadly, but any pain issue. It's any like skin issue, any kind of emotional issue, migraines, ingrown toenail, any of that. There is always some, magic thing that you should be doing this to fix it. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes you just need to go to the doctor, and that's okay. And we need to accept that it's okay to go to the doctor or the mental health practitioner to fix the mental health issues. I know just because I know a lot of folks who have been in law enforcement for most of their lives, that mental health stuff in the military is very, very complicated. It's often not very accepted, and if you are having mental health issues, it can complicate your life in the military. And I know this. And it's not right. It's wrong. It shouldn't be that complicated. If you're depressed, you should be able to just go to the counselor and get the weight off your chest so you can move on. Well, there's often a stigma associated with that within the military, that if you are going to get mental health care, that means you're broken. And if you're broken, well, that means all sorts of other things, and none of them are really true, but that's just the way of it. So yeah, you need to stop and think about it. Is that really true? Is it my truth, or is it the perceived truth? Because they're often two very different things. So that being said, if you are having problems on your healing path, you're healing yourself, you're just like, no, I've been doing the shadow work, I've been doing the journaling, I've been listening to my spirit guides, it's not working. Well, you know what? Sometimes you need more than drinking the moon water. You need to realize that sometimes healing is more complicated than that, than just doing the shadow work, than just doing the journaling. Sometimes it's a lot more complicated and involved than that, and that is really okay. It is very okay. And so, as a priestess, if you're talking to me about mental health issues, I might ask you the hard questions. And I might tell you it's time to confront some hard truths. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not quite ready to accept yourself as someone who is on the right path to mental health growth and healing. And sometimes it's hard to accept that we need to do the thing, to do the stuff, to, do all the work. Sometimes, doing the work, that's hard. And, as a priestess, I have to remember this too. It's not just for you, it's for me too. So it doesn't matter if you're a priestess, a high priest, an acolyte, or, just someone who's trying to learn more about their path. It's okay. Sometimes you just need to stop and accept that mental health matters, and you are okay learning how to heal yourself and going to the licensed professional to get that healing done. And there's just, get it done. And you can always go get your mental health checked out. And if you go and you see the licensed professional and they say, there's nothing wrong with you, why are you here? And you say, well, I thought I had a mental health issue. And they say, nope, no mental health issue here. They're like, great, thanks for your time, have a good day. If your copay for your insurance is, $20 or $200, that's a good investment for to find out that, nope, you don't have a mental health issue. You just have some extra stress in your world. And if that's the case, then absolutely. Make sure your priest or priestess knows. Or your spiritual leader, whomever that is. Yeah. So, just a little bit about depression. Whole hour on depression. It's okay to be depressed, by the way. We all go through it sometimes. And that's something else that I just want to make sure that everybody understands is it's normal to be depressed. Not just, because of COVID, because, let's face it, COVID is depressing. All aspects of COVID is depressing. But, just life in general. If you have lost the job, that might be depressing. It's okay to be depressed about it. If your relationship didn't work out quite the way you thought it was going to, and you're depressed about it, yeah, that's okay too. All of these things, those normal. Stop beating yourself up for the very normal reactions that you might have to the very normal things going on around you. And it's not all love and light. Sometimes it's mud and dirt and work. Absolutely work. So we're about to the top of the hour on the break, and we'll do some singing bowl when we come back. And we'll talk some more about emotions. Because yes, there's emotions out there. And yeah, what to do with them. Yeah, that's the thing. And here I'm waiting for the break to happen because I talked right through it. Oh, there it is. I'll be right back.
Lord, within the sun, as we will, so mote it be, this spell forever done.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. And just like that, here I'm thinking, ooh, gotta get the singing bowl, gotta do the things, and yeah. Think, yeah, okay. I almost forgot myself. So yes, singing bowl. No tingsha tonight. Because I can't do the singing bowl and the tingsha at the same time. I'm just not that talented. And that's an acceptance of my own personal limitations rather than naysaying or poo-pooing anything else. So, yeah. All right. Let's see. What next? So, talking about emotions tonight. And, okay, we start off with depression, which isn't technically an emotion because, honestly, if you're depressed, you can feel all the emotions. I mean, being depressed doesn't stop emotion. It just makes it harder to hear the good emotions and way too easy to hear the negative emotions. So, emotions. Plug the book. Your book. Oh, it's reversed. Blah. So, the book title is The Wild Pagan A to Z. I wrote it and I illustrated it, and it was a good experience. I learned a lot. It's amazing. If you ever think you need to learn more about something, try to teach it or explain it to someone else. Often, yeah, you will definitely learn some things about yourself. Yes. So, the next article is from Witch at the Crossroads, which is okay. I like this author. Katrina Rasbold is the author, and she's got some good stuff. So, this is also a Pathos.com article. Link will be in the show notes. And she talks about high emotion magic. Is it a bonus? Or is it bad news? Well, the answer is yes, and also no, of course. So, emotion is what fuels magical practice because spell work begins with what you want to have happen. If you cannot feel, then you cannot want, and feeling is an emotion. All intense emotion is high energy, and you can, with rational thought and careful planning, direct all of the intensity of that energy towards your goal. So passion, for instance, will spike energy right off the meter, whether that passion comes from lust, anger, fear, or exultation. So high emotions of all kinds, love, fear, sadness, anger, frustration, etc., can fuel your magical energy like a stoked furnace, but should you do? So one of the downsides of high emotion is often when it impacts us, we're unreasonable or irrational. And we poke fun at the Karens and Sharons of the world, but they get a lot of grief because they're unreasonable and irrational, and that's about the best example of high emotion not thinking that I can think of is those folks that are just losing their ever-loving mind for no reason. And so if you're being unreasonable and irrational, that's not a very good place for your mind to be when it comes to doing magical work. It just isn't. And remember, for those of us on the pagan path, a spell is a spell. For those whom might be Christian, a spell is quite similar to a prayer or a devotion. Very, very similar. A lot of similar components, honestly. So, the competent and responsible magical practitioner objectively determines whether they are in a mentally stable place to approach spell work. So, when people ask me, oh, hey, what kind of spell should I do for this situation? It's like, well, do you understand the entirety of the situation? Part of it, I'm a Libra, so I look at things from multiple sides. I just do. That's part of who I am. So when it comes to being competent and responsible, what do? I tell you to think about it. I tell you to write it down. Journal it. How do you feel about it? If you were to do something about that particular situation, what kind of result would you want to happen? So, A leads to B leads to C. So A being the situation, B being your response, C being the your reaction to the response, whatever the spell might be. What then are if you do the ritual, What are the potential side effects? What's going to happen? Are you going to have the results you want? Or what's the potential for the unexpected results? What could they possibly be? But when it comes to high emotion, is your motivation and your intent. So if you're trying to use your magical energy to create a positive outcome for either yourself or others, then a pure intention is best. And yeah, absolutely move forward with confidence. But if you're using your energy in a negative way, often that's not the right headspace to be in a ritual. And when I say revenge or negative energy, that kind of thing, that's the knee-jerk energy. So earlier I mentioned, someone pulls out in front of you. Whose fault is it? Is it your fault or the other person's fault? Well, it depends. How long are you sitting at a green light before they pulled out in front of you? Well, if that knee-jerk reaction, that knee-jerk anger and frustration and emotional response to that is got one level of strength, but then if you stop and you think about it, what really happened, that's why you journal it, and the intensity of that emotion fades a bit, is because it's not in the moment. You've stopped and you've thought about it, because you want to make sure that the energy used is the appropriate level of response to whatever the situation is. When it comes to hormones, wow. Anybody who's ever been around a teenage girl knows that our emotions and our hormonal shifts can play with emotions and have unbalanced reactions to situations. But this is not just for girls, it's for guys too. It doesn't matter. Hormones mess us up in general. Fatigue, illness, if you've been drinking or smoking, that can compromise your judgment and weaken your focus when it comes to a magical push. So if you're doing a ritual, but you've been hitting the meat a little too hard and you're about 4 pints in and sliding down cloud 9 instead of, standing at the quarters in the ritual, are you really sure that you should be doing a ritual? Because you can't, when your mental state is conflicted or not really functioning correctly, a little slow on the upbeat, the room's listing a little bit, whatever it might be, maybe you're just tired or sick. I mean, oof. Yeah, magic when you're sick is every bit as hard as going to work when you're sick, or making breakfast for the kids sick. I mean, but if we are compromised in some way, that magical push or that ability to focus our intent, focus that energy, is compromised. Kind of like nailing Jello to the wall. Is it frozen Jello, or did you just mix it with the hot water and haven't even added ice cubes? Sometimes the hammer works, and sometimes you just make a really big freaking mess. So you pay attention to your focus. So ideally, if we're going into a magical working of some sort, we're going to be level-headed about it. And our spirit and our energy going into it and our emotions going into it are going to be fueled by preferably positive emotions. But, as someone who's a little bit more gray on my path than black or white, because it's just the path. It's not black or white. It is the path. We need to make sure we've got that magical confidence to complete the ritual. Because, if you're committing to doing a ritual and you want to accomplish something, you need to make sure you've got the energy for it. Otherwise, you're going to fizzle out halfway through the ritual, and then what? You've wasted the time, the energy, the resources, and you're further behind than you were when you started. Not such a good thing. And sometimes yeah, you got to make sure you're really doing it for the right reason. That's why I say meditate on it. What are you trying to accomplish? Have you meditated on it? If you've not meditated on it, it's time. Sit and take a few cleansing breaths and get it done. Because those strong emotions, those firm emotions, might not always successfully root us until we have, an understanding of a history and understanding of just optimal results from our magical work. This is why often when you're working with someone who is very much a novice, or if you yourself are a novice when it comes to magical work, why do you want to do the thing? Are you ready to do the thing? Is it a little thing or is it a big thing? Just like if you've ever gone to any of the cooking show websites, it's like this recipe has a complexity, 3 out of 5 skillets or whatever, whatever it is that they're using for their marker for difficulty level. Yeah, if you are brand new, maybe not go for the ultra complicated. It's like going down the bunny slope instead of getting onto the black diamond slopes when you're skiing. If you've never skied in your life, black diamond is not the right place for you. Justin says you might want to start by asking why are you trying to nail Jello to the wall? Exactly, that's part of the problem. Is it going? What's the purpose? Why are you doing this thing? Justin, it's art. That's all there is to it. It is art, and you will appreciate it. Yeah, because I said so. But anyway, so to perform effective spell work, we need to kind of have a history of being effective in our spell work. So that's why you start off small. That's why you start off with the basics. That's why you do the grounding, you do the breathing, you do all of the things in your, you get in the habit of doing all the steps in the correct order, and then you start getting a little more complicated, a little more tense, and a little less time to prepare, and you keep going. It's you're building up your practice. And when you have been journaling your practice and you go back and you read it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. That's why that didn't work, because I hadn't learned this. And oh, okay. And I can see I'm getting better and I'm doing the bigger things, and I get it. So journaling, good. I need to do more of it. I know this. Now, to be effective in our spell work, we don't have to live in a world of rainbows, puppy dogs, and roses, and unicorns, and fairy dust. However, when we do go into a ritual, we should make sure that our intent is true. We're thinking clearly. We're not raging against the machine. And, if you're not thinking clearly, it's harder to do magic that requires those stronger energies, those stronger emotions, because you just can't focus. Wanda says there's all kinds of art. Yes, there is. So a lot of, of the emotions, love is really strong and often is a very motivating emotion. Next to that is anger and fear. So we've all seen the ugly cry that happens. Well, you can be righteously indignant over whatever wrong that was done to you. Sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly, but you go into your prayer or your ritual and you want to wish significant harm upon someone because you're indignant over whatever happened. And often when we're wronged, we want the world to be right again, and then the course correction feels incomplete sometimes without some kind of balance and retribution. Hello, Heathen Coalition, and happy Beltane. And Hexanoct. So Hexanoct is... Hold on. Whoop, can't spell Hexanoct. It's called it's a Witch's Night. It's kind of German. Just kind of German. So, in Germany specifically, April 30 is Hexanacht, or Witch's Night. It's the trick part of trick or treat, if you will. So, yes. um, let's see. So, with the high emotions, we need to remember that pagans aren't the only ones with strong emotions and righteous indignation over wrongs. Every religion has them. Every religion. Now, some traditions do teach that gray magic or dark magic is bad, and you can't do that. And you have to walk in the light, and you have to deflect negative feelings or retribution magic. Well, as I talked for the first hour, deflecting negativity doesn't really do much. So time out real quick. Wanda asks a question, channeling her inner Titan. And she wants to know, do I class Reiki as magic or art or something else? I see it more as art with a little bit of magic. It's energy work, often. And there's a lot of training and understanding that goes along with it, in addition to intuition and being tapped into your intuition and your own personal abilities more. I've had Reiki. It was the most bizarre feeling ever. And that, it's not the most bizarre I've ever had, but yeah, it was not really what I didn't know what to expect, so I was trying to be open-minded. And yeah, I felt something. So yes. So more art than magic, but definitely a practice, and it requires work and it's a lot of energy. Don't go into a Reiki session as the practitioner if you are not in a good headspace, because it kind of messes stuff up. All right, so talking about retribution magic. So yeah, a lot of the neo-pagans are love and light, and they don't really want much to do with the dark side of the world. But for me, it's the path. There's both. Depending on your tradition and where you're at, you do need to make sure that what is going to work best for you. I personally think, and the author of this particular article thinks, that the healthiest place is somewhere in between the light and the dark, or in the world of gray, if you will. I don't live in a world of fear or retaliation, because that's not who I am. I don't have the energy to give to that kind of emotion. No. No. But I also don't want to be a doormat. I am not here for other people to walk all over. So yeah, you don't want to be a doormat, and you also, to thine own self be true. That's a real good quote. That's one of those you could write on your wall, and it's a big deal, and you should think about it. So, if you're an experienced practitioner, well, you should know your boundaries, especially in terms of emotional involvement in your magic, and you should honor them. Now, often, especially as we're growing and learning, we're asked to stretch your boundaries, because that's how you're growing your practice and developing your magical strengths. And but those need to be thought out and conscious, not just a knee-jerk kind of a thing. It's not a reactionary, or the best place to have reactionary magic in stretching your boundaries. So if you're new to magic, reactionary magic will draw you, of course, because honestly, reactionary magic is easy, because you've got that buildup of energy, that buildup of emotion, and you're like, blah, I want the thing to happen. But it doesn't happen overnight. You got to do the baby steps. You got to do the little things. You don't go, the article author goes, do not go from bibbity bobbity boo to putting the whole castle to sleep and raising up a wall of thorns around the palace just because you felt a strong feeling. Yeah, I mean, that's the other. As a new practitioner, often you don't know what is the correct response to a situation. like, someone cutting you off in traffic because you were sitting at the green light for too long. Is flipping them off the right response? No, it's not. You're the one in error. So that's why the thinking and the conscious thought is really, really important. So there's a guy or a leader within paganism, last name is Budapest. When Budapest said, "A witch who cannot curse cannot heal," I think that's true, and I've mentioned this in the past, about how, to me, it's the same energy, it's the same thing. The author here says her impression is that she's not saying that we must all curse people to be balanced. No, she's pointing out that we must know and understand the accountability of both sides of the coin and have the willingness and ability to take care of ourselves magically. So, and only we know that reasonable balance within ourselves. And for those in the medical field, you know that sometimes if someone gets hurt really, really bad or burned or something, you have to cut away dead tissue to allow healthy tissue grow in times of, it's a really significant wound. A fever might make you feel like crap, but the increase in body temperature helps burn away a virus or bacterial infection. So in Magick, we have to know how to make tough choices in order to be a competent practitioner. So even the goddess sometimes destroys in order to create. And that's part of the reason why I am a follower of Hecate, is because she's a balanced deity. She's not all love and light. And honestly, I wouldn't expect her to be all love and light. That just wouldn't make sense to me. But it's not just that. It's in the past, she has helped destroy things. If you've read any of the Greek myths, supposedly Zeus called upon her to help destroy the Titans. That's a pretty big thing. That's a destruction type of behavior and thought process. Very, very destructive. And, is that who she is all the time? No, that's not who she is all the time. That's just who she happened to be in that particular instance. And that's okay. It is okay to destroy things sometimes. If you garden, and especially if you're new at gardening in a new spot, sometimes you have to destroy your yard to put in a good garden. If you're trying to honor trees that you have to cut down, sometimes you have to cut down the tree to plant the new acorn or seed or whatever seedling so that the new tree can grow in its place. Because sometimes the old tree is diseased or infected and needs to be removed because it's not healthy for your space, your garden, or wherever it is you're at that you've got the trees. And it's just a whole process. We have to know that. So, when we are full of emotion to the point where we can't make really good choices, it's kind of like drunk dialing the goddess. Yeah, not such a good idea. Google, I don't know if Google still does, but at one point Google, in the mail section, you had the option or that choice to go through and turn on goggles or Googles or whatever they're called. And basically it was a series of questions that you had to answer before the email would be sent within Google. Honestly, I wish I could put it on my phone. I think it should be a knee-jerk thing that people put on their phones. So if they are too drunk to make logical choices at 2 o'clock in the morning, they probably should not be texting their ex. Just saying. Because, yeah, you're not going to make the good choices. Yeah, should you really be doing the things? And, drunk dialing the deities or the spirit guides that you work with, yeah, that doesn't qualify as the right thing or the good thing because you don't know. So if you feel you've been wronged and it's time to lend your magical energy to right the wrong, make sure your intentions are correct and your motivations are correct before you take action. Often in those situations, that proverbial karma bus that we talk about is already on its way. You don't have to drive it. Sometimes you just need to sit back and get some popcorn and see what's going to happen rather than try to drive the bus. You don't always have to drive the bus. Let go of control. Move on. Let it go, Elsa. So when we come back from break, we're going to finish up this article, and I think I have one more I wanted to talk about, and we'll go from there. Be right back, guys.
Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, sing it unto me, the songs of Mother Goddess and the Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. Tonight we've talked about depression, we're talking about strong emotions. Sometimes you gotta do the work. You gotta get muddy. Yes. We've talked about the karma bus. Sometimes it is better to just step back than try to drive it. I have some control issues, and I know this about myself. It's hard, but it's real. So, yeah, sometimes I just need to let go and let somebody else drive. That's me making sure that my intentions are right. So, when you're checking your interactions, so if you've been in a situation, you're like, what is the appropriate response to the thing, whatever the thing is? Well, one of the things you should consider is what were you taught, in the particular situation. When people go through something, it's like, well, did you learn anything? Yes or no? If it's a yes, well, often that's an expensive lesson. If it's no, it's going to be an even more expensive lesson. Because often, even though when we're experiencing something negative or something unpleasant, or the situation is horrible, whatever it is, that experience is still teaching us something. Sometimes it's about ourselves. Sometimes the way we handle the situation is teaching someone else. Sometimes both. And so, think about what the experience. What is it teaching you about yourself and the capabilities and the intentions of the other person? And are you expending energy to do a ritual or to throw shade, if you will, on the other individual or the other party? Or, is their action, was it a mistake? Because, mistakes happen. Was it deliberate? Was it malicious? Are you assuming it was malicious, or do you know it was? Because they're often, when we view the way people respond to a situation, we're reviewing it through our own lenses. So we're saying, well, I would respond to this situation in this way, so you must be responding to the same situation in this way. That's one of those shadow work things to work about. So knowing that about yourself is a really valuable tool, and knowing if the other person is capable of hurting you or causing you harm in the way that you think they are or have done, that's really, really important. So stop and think about it. Before you do the big ritual, talk to your spiritual leader, or a peer, someone who gets it. Hello, the unknown. It's a new face. Hello. So yeah, someone that you respect, anyways. Get their opinion, their objective opinion. So give them all of the details, not just what you think happened. Hey, so this happened and this happened and this happened. I think this is why it happened, but I don't know. So yeah, knowing what the other person is capable of, that's a big deal. It really, really, really is a big deal. So after talking to a peer or your spiritual leader, if a day passes and you're like, you know what, I still feel like I need to do this thing, whatever it is, then move carefully and with specific intent, directed intent. But if you're moving forward to something negative, make sure you are willing to accept any karmic blowback that you might incur, any repercussions, the unintended consequences, because they are really there. Was it Newton's laws of physics? I think for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah, that's real. Murphy's law is, well, just because you didn't think it was going to happen doesn't mean it didn't. So, yeah, make sure you're putting the right amount of energy out there. And was it the right amount of energy, or is it, did you overreact or did you underreact? If you underreact, why'd you expel the energy anyways? Another thing to remember here is fear is the brother to anger. So there's a school of thought that says that anger is always fear, frustration, or hurt in disguise, which I think is real. Yeah, because often it's fear of failure, fear of being hurt, fear of, all those different things. And because we are afraid of it, we try to take control of it by being angry. So fear and worry are the antithesis to faith, and almost directly state, I do not trust in the process or the goddess or the god or my spirit guides or even myself to have my own best interests in mind. So yeah, this is why I try not to worry too much about what's going to happen tomorrow or fear the ramifications. Like with my book, I hit publish. It's like, oh gosh, I hope people like it. If they don't, well, you know what? I learned something in writing it. That was a big deal for me. So when we embrace the fear and kind of wallow in it, it says we're rejecting our own personal destiny. And instead we're going to basically throw the game on the floor and go home. We don't want to play anymore. We're done. And so fear, of course, is a normal reaction, but it's not a healthy place to live for any length of time. Anybody who's done any neurologic studies out there know that fear leads potentially to the long-term increase in like cortisol levels and other stuff in the brain, which leads to almost not necessarily brain damage, but it negatively impacts the way you process information. And there's some long-term physical health deficits as a result of being in a state of fear for any length of time. So, deep cleansing breaths, careful consideration, and not just of current times, but also past times when we were fearful and had a positive outcome of a situation, and that can be helpful. And this is also why we go to a therapist once in a while or talk to our priest or priestess, because sometimes it's like, man, I'm freaked out about this. I don't know what's going to happen. What am I going to do? Well, you know what? When you talk it out with someone, often it's like, wow, that wasn't really the right response to the situation. I had nothing to be afraid of. Okay, cool. So, I mean, that happens. Fear, however, can be helpful when it stops reckless behavior or alerts us to danger. I mean, is this really the right response? Are we afraid to do the thing because we're afraid of the response? Well, maybe it's not the right response. Fear can also cause incredible acts of strength and accomplishment, so it's not always a negative emotion. Because often when fear motivates us to take positive actions to safety, it's a literal lifesaver. But when it takes us on a downward spiral into depression and a rejection of necessary changes, well, it can be pretty doggone debilitating. So, if you're performing magic from a position of fear, well, that works in the very same way. So, if, for instance, you're walking late at night and you're in a dangerous area, you might want to put protective shields around you, which is good. That's a good precaution. However, if we do magic to prevent a loved one, or a beloved but also dysfunctional relationship from ending, maybe, or because we feel alone, well, we're hindering our own progress and our own ability to grow. Garth Brooks had a song out there, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. Yeah, think about that one. If all of the things you've asked the deities, your spirit guides, the universe, whatever, asked for in the last, say, 20 years, if you're that old, in the last 20 years, if you, instead of getting no's, if you'd gotten yeses, what would be different in your life? Would you have met the person you should have met? or would you have settled for someone else when it comes to relationships? Would you have the job that you like, or would you be stuck somewhere dead end? Would you live in the house that you are totally excited to live in, or would you be living somewhere else completely? Would you have moved, or would you have not moved? Would you have gone to college or not, etc., etc.? Yeah. So, is it dysfunctional, or is it really being precautionary? And so Justin says the media puts out a lot of fear and has done so in the last couple of years, last few years, especially in the last year. Yeah. Well, you know what? I haven't been watching a lot of news on TV lately. Canceled the satellite. Don't have cable out here because live rurally. I like that. And a lot of the news I subscribe to it specifically because I trust the sources. They're fact checked and all that, and I can trust that they go to the effort to do that rather than just going out there and spitting it out. And instead of sharing the news, they're sharing opinions. Unknown says, I always get unanswered prayers. In fact, I think the Lord enjoys laughing at me. No, I don't think that's it at all. I think perhaps the journey you're on, the things you're asking for, are not right for the journey that you're on. So it depends on what kind of prayers and things you're asking for. But opportunity, for instance, often takes the form of change or disruption. So yeah, if change and disruption has happened in your life, well, is it a negative thing, or is that change and disruption a true opportunity? So yeah, instead of looking at something through the lens of fear and being afraid of I'm afraid it's not going to work, well, instead of that challenge that's coming up, what's the good things that could come out of it? I mean, thinking about the negativity in the world and what could possibly go wrong is so easy. It's everywhere. We are told all the time what could possibly go wrong with everything. Instead of focusing on what could possibly go wrong, think about, what if it went right? What if you applied for the job that you aren't quite qualified for, but you wish you could be, and that's the job that you really want? What if you apply for it and you get it? Wouldn't that be cool? Or you want to move to a new community, but you don't know anybody there, but that's part of the reason why you want to move to the new community, and you see a house or apartment or whatever that's exactly what you're looking for. Do you put the deposit down and move, or do you not commit to making the change? Or a new car, or picking the college, or asking that person out. Hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee? What's the worst that could happen? They say no? Well, then you're pretty much in the same boat you were before, going to get the cup of coffee on your own. If anything, on that particular one, it's easier to pretend that they said yes in your head until they say no to your face. Just saying. So, don't lock yourself in the potentials of the worst possible outcome in any scenario. Doctor calls, hey, we need to talk about your lab test, so we're going to schedule an appointment. You're like, shoot, what's wrong with me? Oh, maybe what's right instead of what's wrong. I didn't think about it that way. So rarely does the worst possible thing actually happen. And we can manifest what we fear most by focusing our energy and intention into that direction. So when someone says, I'm really upset and I'm really worried, it's like, you know what? In this particular situation, what's the best thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? Why is it the worst thing? Honestly, if you're making the commitment to go to a different job, it's like, what's the best thing that could happen? Well, I like the job and I make more money. What's the worst thing that could happen? I hate the job and I make less money. So anywhere in between is a success. That's a win. It's really figuring out what the paradigms are, or what the boundaries are for success and failure, because it varies with each situation, with each person. Yeah, find those strong focus points of positivities. Now you can journal them. Some people use vision boards or dream boards. Some meditation, some all the above. Remember, fear will lie to you. Insist that the worst possible outcome of any situation is what's coming for you, and will distract you from any of the other possible directions and different other results that could possibly happen. I mean, seriously. 5 options, 1 is bad, 4 is good. And you commit. You've got a 20% chance of things going sideways. Okay. But you've got an 80% chance of things going well. We need to remember to focus on that 80% rather than the 20. And look at the news. For example, right now, we have a lot of minority groups shouting and being heard. Why? Because they're shouting louder than the majority groups. Often the majority groups assume that they don't have to shout as loud because there's more of them. Well, no. Sometimes you have to shout louder. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, there's so many different sayings there. But that's the one. The biggest one there. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Shout louder. So, now, neutrality and objectiveness, objective openness, allows us to accept all possible outcomes and not feed energy into the worst. Therefore, any magic done in the face of fear should come from a position of faith rather than panic. Yeah. So with high intensity emotion, instead of focusing on what could go wrong, focus on what's the best possible outcome or the greatest good. That'll help you really tune in and hone in what you want to achieve. So instead of just, everything's going to go to heck in a handbasket, what if it doesn't? What if you win the lottery when you buy the lottery ticket? Wouldn't that be wild? That is why people buy Powerball tickets. It's not because they think they're going to lose. They're buying the what if. What if I won? They're going to dream about it. I do that. If I'm feeling a little down sometimes, I'll buy a Powerball ticket. Do I think I'm going to win? I don't know. I could. I know the chances of me being hit by lightning twice are slightly greater. But what if I won? It's kind of fun to brainstorm. What would I do if I won? I'd buy a hot tub. I'd buy a new car. There's this crystal at the shop that I work at that I would love to buy, but it's like $50,000. Yeah. That's one of those things you can only buy if you win the lottery. But still, wouldn't that be awesome? Instead of worrying about what goes wrong, what could go right? And journal about it. Journal down, hey, in this situation, the potential outcomes that I know could possibly happen are X, Y, and Z. Those are all okay. Option P and Q might be bad. And A, B, C, and D are probably going to be really, really awesome. Well, if you write them all down and acknowledge the things that could go wrong, okay, those could go wrong. But is that the worst possible thing in the world? No. Any other option is going to be good. Yeah, it really, for me personally, when I changed my thought process to what's the worst possible thing versus the best possible thing, it's like, anything in between. I'm going to be okay. And you know what? I go into most situations like, all right, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm going to be okay. It's really allowed me to let go of some of that anxiety that I used to carry around all the time. For instance, I used to have a hard time with public speaking. A really, really, really hard time. Even now, getting in front of a crowd of people, sometimes I'll break out in a sweat. since you all are listening to me and I can't actually see you, it's no problem. I'm just talking into a microphone and some chats and stuff and the occasional email, and that's pretty easy. But actually, it is pretty easy. But yeah, face to face with people sometimes, it's still a little hard. But I've been on the news, and yeah, I've had to do some interviews. I've done some talks and some trainings and some things where I've had to lead large groups. And yeah, well, once you've done that a few times, like, okay, I'm talking to the camera. This is no big deal. There was 20,000 people there. My God. So I'm going to talk about sweaty palms. So yeah, just stop and think about it, though. If you're really, truly having a fear moment, write it down. And then ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome here? What's the worst possible outcome? Yeah. Both. What's in between? That's probably what's going to happen. But the best one could still too. So yeah, remember, keep an open mind on the results. And got just about 4 minutes left, so just touching base on the depression and the mental health and stuff. You know what? Don't be afraid to drink the Kool-Aid or the turmeric lemonade, like I talked about at the very, very beginning. That sounds kind of horrible, actually. But, you know, if it helps, it makes you feel better. Sometimes that really does make your health better, the placebo effect. But, you know, make sure your doctor knows that you're drinking the turmeric lemonade, because some of that stuff is doesn't mix well with some of your prescriptions. And it's not because they're antiviral or something like that. No, it's some citrus, that's the word. Some citrus compounds don't interact well with some of your other medications. So, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions when it comes to your health care. So any of your mental health care, that is every bit as important as your physical health care, if not more so. Because if your mental health care is poor, well, you're not going to be as likely to make sure that you brush your teeth or get your teeth cleaned once in a while, go to the doctor periodically, get your labs done. I'm not saying Western medicine's the only way to go, but you need to take care of yourself. Drink some water, put down the soda, that kind of thing. And do your research when it comes to the medications. That PubMed, P-U-B-M-E-D, hold on, P-U-B. So it's, you just want to Google it, PubMed, P-U-B, Peter, Umbrella, Baker, M like Mary, E like Edward, and D like David. Just type it in. I would read out the address to you, but it's about 2 feet long. Okay, maybe not, but you get my point. So it talks about different clinical trials and stuff. That's a good place to go if you're worried about, hey, what is, this really special thing? Hey, but I saw this on Shark Tank. Is it a real thing? Well, yeah, maybe it is, but is it really the right thing? So stop and think about that. Remember, if you're really feeling anxious, do your grounding, your meditation, your journaling, all of that. Some people do tapping. If that helps you, by all means. Sometimes jogging or exercising helps you. Yeah, seriously. And go for a walk. Walk the dog. Walk the cat. Maybe not my cat. She's a little weird. Yep. She's a little weird. Walk the kids if you can. It seems like people are more willing to let you walk the dog than they are for you to go walk the kids. So, I don't know. Weird. So, any questions, send me the email at wildpaisley@gmail.com. Our ideas for the show. My website is paisleywild.com. You can check out the book, The Wild Pagan, A to Z. and that is on Amazon. I will have it available on the website sometime this next week. And if you want to know cost for shipping outside of the U.S., just email me your address and I'll get it sorted. So, looks like we're done for the night already. Holy cow. It's been a quick night. So I hope you guys have a fantastic Saturday. And tomorrow is Beltane, so I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good, merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again. And I'll see you tomorrow night. Have a good night, all.
Lord, within the sun, as we will, so mote it be, the spell forever done.